Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Molitor and Drew Dinsick, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Andy and I are back home after a delightful trip to the desert. Bet Bash was super fun. Met a lot of new people. Appreciate Spanky having us and all the hard work that goes into putting on an event like that. Thanks to the Circa folks as well who are sponsoring this podcast. Excited to see what the numbers look like when we get the contest filled up. The projections are
25
freaking
million,
high. Yes. Like, oh my God, really? Like we're really doing this. Like we're gonna see a big number in that Survivor, especially. It's exciting. Any reflections on the weekend?
No, Sam in the chat saying best eats and drinks. Best drinks are always at the Legacy Club. Obviously, had some good cocktails up there.
Negronis with nukes. Yeah.
Best eats, we did the oyster bar over at Palace Station. That was a highlight. Had to wait a little while, but it was amazing. I want to go back there. I honestly kind of want to go back there in 2 weeks when we go back and just try a different kind of soup.
Palace Station Oyster Bar was awesome.
You know, we love Circa, but I've eaten everywhere there.
Yeah.
And we went with some friends downtown, and none of us had really been to Oscars down at the Plaza. And that delivered. Everything was great over there. We'll put Drew in charge of the wine, obviously, and then I had some delightful lamb chops.
2023 Napa Cab.
Yeah, we ordered a giant bottle of wine, which was also fun.
I got a brisket that was so tender. I was like poking it with my fork just to see how tender it was, and it was just melting and falling apart. It was so good. Really well done. Great meals. Great seeing our friends in Vegas. I love it. I love kind of
those two meals were like 6 hours apart. Also, very good.
80s with the NRAS guys was great. The short rib fried rice was pretty. Or was it brisket fried rice? I forget what it was.
Brisket fried rice.
Brisket fried rice. That was super good.
Yeah, always delivers.
Yeah, good times.
And then, as I said, we're gonna do Cardinals today. We're gonna go through power ratings for the Cardinals.
You know what, though?
We're gonna go through stuff.
We're halfway. We're halfway. We're at the halfway point. A lot of camps are kind of we're wrapping up. Really, like we're about to go from like hardcore camp to preseason. Which is exciting. There's a lot of news and notes. Anything that has happened so far that has changed your sincere opinions that we have already recovered on the first half of teams?
Yeah, let's do some rapid fire stuff that happened just like recently that we need to, stuff that actually matters to our power ratings. So the injury in Washington, Tunsil, triceps, most of the season. Andrew Wiley, probably the candidate to slide over from the interior line because I think it sounds like they want to keep Connolly at right tackle. So adjust your power ratings, start to figure out exactly follow the news, figure out exactly who's going where, and adjust your ratings there. Obviously, that's a downgrade for that. I don't know anything else to say on that one.
No, me neither. It sounds like the Baltimore. I'm just going to go down in order of the teams we've covered and some of the stuff that I have news and notes. It sounds like the Baltimore offense is going to hit the ground running. Their skill group, in particular, Jacoby Lane, didn't even mention his name when we did the Baltimore podcast. He's having a phenomenal August. And if he steps up and is like a bona fide, weapon for them, all of a sudden
I brought him up because I saw a tweet about him that day. Yeah, it was he's like this. Well, it's like he's the star of camp. I'm like, okay. Let's see it a few more. Let's see it a few more times because we have that every year.
Yeah, I got nothing on Chicago. Cincinnati, Dexter Lawrence looks phenomenal. What'd you got, Chicago?
Luther Burden's gonna miss a month with a groin injury. That stinks. Sounds like probably back for the the season-ish, somewhere in there.
Also, who is the defender? Kobe Bryant also out for first four games of the season at a minimum, probably more like 6. That sucks. Yeah, Chicago's downgrade to the skill group if Luther Burden's not getting.
And then back to Baltimore
wide
too. Zay
receiver
Flowers
1B kind of role.
Zay Flowers quad contusion, day-to-day kind of thing. I think he's going to be fine. Give it a week.
Cincinnati, Dexter Lawrence looks phenomenal. The clips of him destroying the Bengals O-line is probably some signal that the Bengals O-line might be a little bit of a question mark, but Dexter Lawrence looks like he is going to elevate that unit quickly. Everybody is no one's on board with the Bengals defense being a factor. I'm starting to feel like that's potentially a miss by the market at the start of the season. Al Golden kind of fucking up a full half of a season last year. Really kind of, I think, throwing a lot of people off the scent that might actually be a pretty good unit this year. You getting that at all?
We'll figure it out. I need to look at that.
Dallas is looking.
I'm just moving you on because we can't spend 2 minutes on 16 teams in the Cardinals preview.
Dallas. Well, we don't have much Cardinals to talk about.
We do.
Yeah, no, but who the hell? Like, it's such a mystery what the plan is.
And if you're listening to this later on in the season or in the off season and you don't want any of this news because
you're probably skipping the Cardinals anyway.
If it's 3 weeks old at this point, there's time. Just
Detroit. Dallas looks great. Detroit is not having a great camp so far. Detroit's defense looks bad. They lose their center Mays. I don't know. I didn't have him highly rated, but it's still you don't want to be on plan
switching
B at center to start the season, especially when you have a player like Goff who struggles with internal pressure. I'm not hearing anything positive out of Green Bay.
No, Bridgewater retired. Dobbs signed to replace him. So your depth got a little thinner there. If you do have to go to, we don't practice fucked. What we're gonna have to deal with there.
I got nothing on Green Bay. It's been a very quiet camp, but nothing positive coming out of there so far that changed my opinion that they might be a regression candidate. Miami has had a camp. Did you know that? If you haven't been paying really close attention, you might have missed it that Miami has had camp. They're getting very little coverage.
Yeah, I had Javon Hargrave getting, he's taking some of his first snaps there for Green Bay. That's about it for them. Yeah, Miami's having camp. What else is that leaving that division?
Well, I'm just going down in order. Minnesota, Kyler Murray's going to win the job.
Yep. We said that weeks ago, guys.
New England has too many wide receivers and not enough pass rushers.
That's about right. That checks out.
The Giants have an offensive brain trust that is extremely suspect. Jackson Dart's development might be interrupted this year. You got any pushback there?
No, I'm not going to push back on that.
Jets.
We got to see it in real life, but
Jets kind of like the Dolphins are having a camp. Presumably, I've seen nothing. Philadelphia defense looks like it's going to be quite strong to start the season. Big questions for me about that offense. Mekhi Lemon not going to be available to start the season. It looks like.
Yeah, Lane Johnson last year. That's what he's saying.
Yep. Pittsburgh is still a mystery to me, and that leaves Washington, which we covered off the top. Laramie Tunsil, one of the best offensive linemen in the league, done for the season.
Yeah.
Regular season.
Other
I like how they framed it regular season. Like if the Commanders make the postseason, maybe he'll be back.
Yeah. Licht says Vita Vea is not getting traded, but people say things all the time. They're working on talks there. We'll see if he is a Tampa Bay Buck. That matters to this team and whatever team he may get traded to if that turns out to be a lie. Kirk Cousins is a badass. He's fighting people in camp. Got suspended for one practice for being a hard ass. That checks out. You mentioned Deshaun Watson is probably winning the job there, which we'll be interested to see because as I mentioned in the Cleveland preview, if the shoulder's good, maybe he's okay. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look like the ball's zipping out of his hands. And then last one was Terrion Arnold's taking some visits.
I think you're
Seattle,
going to
New Orleans.
Yeah. I think you're going to cash over 2.5 quarterbacks for the Browns.
Yeah.
Watson, Sanders, and Gabriel will all start a game, I think.
The further we get away from the armed robbery and kidnapping, the closer we are to Terrion Arnold just playing on a team until the cops come get him, I guess.
8 felonies for that guy. Good luck. All right, let's talk Cardinals. It is 10 minutes in, and the Arizona Cardinals are, I think, a pretty straightforward problem to solve, but I don't have the answer.
What was their record in the division last year, Joe?
0-6 had to be, right? They lost all 6, and I think they lost them with authority.
It's tough to do. These teams you have familiarity with. Yes, it was the toughest other 3 teams in a division in football, but you're right. There were some ass beatings in there.
They won their first 2 games.
2-0 to start the season.
Then very, very famously blew a very, very winnable game to the Tennessee Titans in Week 5, and that was pretty much it. They went to 2-3. It never got better. They lose to the Colts and the Packers heading into their bye week. Season was over. I went into the year last year with the Cardinals rated as a bet on average team. Right. And with Kyler Murray under center, I thought that was a pretty defensible position. It was a little bit unclear exactly what and how injured he was versus like after the 5 starts. It was just, let's position ourselves to lose and get a good draft choice, I guess. Yeah. Or whatever the case was. His time off, made that decision for him because Jacoby went 1-11 as your starter in 12 games in respite for Kyler Murray. And Brissett put up a ton of garbage time yards and ultimately a not that terrible statistical profile, but it came with not competitive football from the team standpoint. The defense was among the worst in the NFL. The offense was consistently, playing into double-digit deficits. So just never really got going for Mr. Gannon. Mr. Gannon at one point accosted a player on the sideline before ultimately. Before ultimately. Guy. Yeah, we got to the end of the season though, and the reports were Bidwell was going to keep Gannon around. But then I guess he changed his mind. Monty Austin-Ford gets to hire a new coach. They go after Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's little brother, and guy who has had numerous cups of coffee with Sean McVay. So yeah, here we go. Rebuild is on. It's a tricky handicap for them this year. At 3-14 last year, that was a fair record. I think their Pythag was like 5 wins, so maybe it was a couple wins under. But this is a team that, if you squint, has some talented pieces, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. They have one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL this year, which makes like a market rating to tease out from this team is pretty freaking low.
4th place schedule, right? That was my take.
Oh, yes.
Of the 4th place schedules.
By far the worst. Yeah.
Some of it just based on the 6 games that you're forced to play against your division, where you're playing the Super Bowl favorites, the Super Bowl champions from last year, and then if they get healthy, a pretty good team in the Niners. But other than that, it's not a great schedule. And you mentioned Brissett goes 1-11. Let's pay him a little more money. Maybe that'll fix it.
If you swapped what the Cardinals have in terms of an ask this year with the Saints, right? Yeah. And you're giving them the Saints' easiest schedule in the league compared to the hardest that the Cardinals face. You're probably like, maybe we should consider some long shot prices on these guys. Like there's like a decent amount of young players on this team that I'm kind of like, I like. This is kind of Brownsian in that, like, man, they've got the infrastructure in place. They just kind of need the quarterback to fall into the mix here. Jacoby Brissett is clearly not the guy. He held out of all offseason activities until he was given a raise, and they're paying him $15 million this year to be the starter. But it's very unclear to me, like, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do? And
I'd like some opinions from the chat, or if you're coming to this later in the YouTube chat, or reply to us on Twitter, how you think they're going to approach this from quarterback, because that's something we did off air just now. Like, is it going to be, hey, we're just going to go with, we paid Brissett, we're going to start Brissett, Beck's going to sit, he's going to learn. We have an able-bodied backup if need to be, a guy who's started in a bunch of places. Is that the plan now? Because when I went into this season, first starting and looking at everybody from like the 10,000 foot view, it always felt like a Brissett was just a guy that starts a few games, and then, hey, let's kick the tires on Beck because we just drafted him. So like post draft, that's kind of how I felt, and I don't know how I feel about it now. And it definitely affects how you're looking at this team for a full season, because as we always mention, I'm making power ratings for week 1.
Correct.
So for week 1, I'm, Jacoby Brissett is starting week 1. That's how I'm making my power ratings. But when I'm doing my stuff for season long and trying to evaluate win totals and futures and stuff, I'm looking at, what kind of splits are we going to get between the two, and what the overall feel of this. And then obviously the schedule comes into it, because even if I put this as like half Brissett, half Beck, I'm not getting to a rating that gives me a 3.5 win team.
No,
obviously. No. So a raw rating, obviously, once I take my raw rating and put it versus a schedule, a tougher schedule is going to drag down your implied wins quite a bit. But if you were going against a neutral schedule with the rating I'm putting together for week 1, it's like, hey, yeah, you got a 6-win team or whatever. It's pretty bad, but it's not god awful. And the market is just
ice
dumping on the under. like we're gonna, not only are we gonna see Carson Beck immediately, but they're going to make him wear a blindfold while he plays until like it is very cold. And I'm not sitting here trying to make a case. I'm just saying, with some of the players on the roster and how tough it is to win games, even when you're a good team versus a bad team, it's really hard for me to get down in the mud where the market has this team rated. And I guess I need to figure out why. I can't get there yet. It's hard. It's very hard to drop all the way down there.
No, the market right now, and some of this is because the way their season starts, they're on the road at the Chargers, then they get Seattle, then they get San Francisco. So right out of the gate, bang, 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 the 3 sides that you can actually bet pretty large now. I mean, they're not, we're a long way from limits up on week 2, week 3. Don't misunderstand me, but you can bet pretty big, get pretty big stake down on week 1 right now. And all 3 of these games we're talking about, the Cardinals are double-digit dogs. And so the market rating for this team is, the market is acting like this is the worst team in football, period. And that they're like a -7, and that, like we're talking like the Dolphins with Brian Flores back in the day, where they were, like if they don't cover these first couple games as 10-point dogs, then the next thing you know, they're going to be at San Francisco week 3, and they're going to be like 20-point underdogs. All right. Like there's definitely that degree of certainty right now in the market that this is a bad team, and I don't see it. So I guess the question is, like, I don't really even know who can possibly walk to the window and be like, no, I understand the Cardinals and the market is too high on them. Right? Who's dying to bet against the Cardinals right now at the way they're being priced? Anyone?
I mean, maybe not now that they've dropped like a full game, but at the same time, yeah, if it weren't for the schedule, I would be very excited to get contradictory on this team and maybe take some overs. Yeah. And we'll get into the schedule obviously later, but I think the biggest offseason move is the one we should discuss. We'll get into the rest of the offseason personnel wise, but I need your take on one Mike LaFleur.
Sure.
Obviously the last stop was a couple years under, I almost said Shanahan, under McVay in Los Angeles, but he was not your play caller there. He was, an offensive coordinator, helped with the game planning and whatever else those guys do. Prior to that, he was in the Big Apple, and what was that? Salah's tenure there.
For Salah.
Yeah, so he was your Jets coordinator, and that was tough. So I dug in a little on that, like what happened there, because those weren't good teams.
No,
obviously Salah got fired, and he got fired. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna have to double check that, but a lot of it was just going back and looking like, oh man, those were Zach Wilson years. And some of the quotes he had afterwards was like, we didn't do a good job of getting him ready. He probably shouldn't have started. We probably should have brought in a veteran to get him ready. And honestly, and then they benched him. They remember that was the era of the Mike White game, where it's like, hey, you're benching him for Mike White. Things aren't going well. Nice. I found quotes from Garrett Wilson where it says like the offense was predictable and defense is basically, if they watched their film, they were going to stop us. So it was, and the end of his tenure there, I'd have to double check this, but I'm going to triple check it because I did double check it. No touchdown in the final 3 games.
Oh,
they just didn't. Yeah, they didn't score much, and a lot of it was just kind of based on quarterback. I don't think Zach Wilson was ever the answer everywhere, but yeah, it's one of those where, hey, we're all excited because we got this guy from Los Angeles, and hopefully he learned a lot from McVay. But we've seen him call plays before. Now he's got to call plays. He's got to call plays and run a team. And last time it wasn't great.
That Jets team was 7-4 at one point, and then lost out and went 7-10. And you're right, they did not score a touchdown any of their last 3 games.
It was like 30 possessions in a row, man.
They stuck. Here's a bet. You want a bad signal? You want real bad signal? He was the sacrificial lamb. Saleh fired him, and they replaced him with Nathaniel Hackett.
I know. Yeah, I have that.
That's
not great.
Bad signal. That's a bad signal. Here's the thing.
And to be fair to him, Breece Hall, if you remember, was very good. Then tore his knee. Elijah Vera Tucker went down during that tenure as well. Like they got the wrong quarterback too. They drafted the wrong quarterback. I don't think anyone's going to go and say, Zach Wilson is going to have some sort of renaissance, and everybody else was wrong about him. It was, it was one of those things where
he's out of the league, right?
Even Saleh knew, I think, hey, I'm just doing this to save my ass a little here.
Yeah. All right. Well, so it's obviously an incomplete. How is he gonna handle this opportunity in Arizona? I guess you want the glass half full or glass half empty first? You want the positive or the negative?
I thought he did okay in the run game a little in New York. But yeah, I mean everything else.
Here's the negative. Here's the negative. Okay. Arizona is a very poorly managed franchise, and it's the owner's fault. It's a mess. This is not a serious. Is he with the Saints? Okay, I wasn't sure. He's third string. Probably not gonna make the team. Is he? I didn't realize. I'm not following the Saints camp battle for QB2 between him and who presumably Spencer Rattler. I'm going to guess Spencer Rattler wins that comp. The bad part is that the Cardinals are a poorly managed franchise because the owner is not good and fish rots from the head. I don't know that the owner has successfully found the general manager of the future in Monty Ossenfort, but he's clearly given Monty Ossenfort a lot of rope to kind of shape this team the way he thinks it should be shaped. The decision to fire Gannon came late and put the Cardinals behind the 8 ball in terms of candidate options. And it felt like LaFleur was kind of a 8th choice.
I know, but in my mind, at least you went and got
this is the negative.
Guy.
This is the negative.
Okay,
this is the negative. All right, like.
No, but because I almost brought that up earlier. Was like they couldn't decide if they were going to retain their coach or not, so they waited and waited in a year where
there wasn't a lot of good candidates.
Well, not only that, but a billion teams needed coaches and OCs. It's like, man, this might not be the year to go find a guy.
Yeah, but they tried, and LaFleur accepted the job, and now gets to be an NFL head coach. He doesn't look the part. He looks like he's like 29. He's actually 39. You can't tell. You can't tell from his photographs or from his press conferences that he is.
He hasn't had the pressure yet, that ages.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's like when they take a picture before and after a presidency. Oh man, Obama got old. Well, the main, I think bull case would be he had time to reflect on like what went wrong in New York and all the mistakes he made, while he wasn't having to sit there and call the plays and kind of absorbing the things with a really good offense in LA. So you do see this at times where guys just, they get a shot. It doesn't work out. Sometimes there's extenuating circumstances like having, the old MILF Hunter there at quarterback. And it's just, hey, let's get a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we got. He seems to be a smart cat. As Birdie's pointing out, they retained the DC. They didn't get rid of everybody here on staff, and maybe this is it's funny too, because like if there is like a bull case for this team and they overperform a little, it's like hey, your entire distribution of wins might be like 6 or 7 wide, and it's all in the basement.
Oh yeah.
Like you're still in 4th place.
It's 6
somehow.
or 7 wide because it's 0 to 7.
Yeah, it's like even if you have the best year possible out of you're probably still in 4th place.
3 and 14 bottom.
Such a tough division, which really stinks for them.
Here's another bull. Here's more bull case. You mentioned it. He's an offensive mind. So now that he is like fully in charge, we're going to find some interesting, find out what he's learned, because his stops included many years under Shanahan. He was an offensive assistant with that Falcons team that lost the Super Bowl. I don't remember if you remember that game, but the Falcons and Shanahan, famously the offensive coordinator of that team. He followed Shanahan to San Francisco. He also was obviously involved then in the first San Francisco Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs, not the second one. He moved on, as you mentioned. He probably learned something from his experience with the Jets, and then presumably learned something new with the Rams. I think there are probably very few, kind of young offensive minds in the NFL who have worked directly with Shanahan and McVay. Like there could be something positive out of that. I will say though that his first decision for his putting together his staff disappointed me. He hired Nathaniel Hackett.
I didn't want to stop on it. I was just going to let you do it.
He hired the guy that replaced him in New York with the Jets. I don't really know what Nathaniel Hackett has to add to anything, so I don't really get why he keeps getting hired. But it kind of goes to your point. There were a lot of teams that needed OCs, so somebody was going to hire Hackett, I guess, and it just happened to be Mike LaFleur. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have cautious optimism that there could be a fun offense that comes out of this based on LaFleur's his resume. But yeah, there's a lot of other reasons to be to just expect kind of mid or poor. And that also might be the plan, which is why I'm having a tough time doing anything with the Cardinals, because I don't know that they have high confidence that Beck is the answer long term. If they did, they wouldn't have waited till the 3rd round to pick him. So I guess that Beck is a lotto ticket, and that the actual hope and goal is to pick at the top of the draft next year and get a quarterback. Would you agree?
Probably, but at the same time, I think
nobody actively goes into an NFL season trying to lose, though, right?
No, you don't. But at the same time, I think you do have to. At some point, you're going to have a pretty bad record, possibly immediately. You do kick the tires on him. It's not as if this guy has not played in some big games in college, and you just never know. I think almost every quarterback is like a lotto pick. You really don't know what you're going to get. Some of these guys that but if really you're talking about the 3rd round pick. I don't think you were getting sniped. It wasn't like there was a bunch of quarterback hungry teams that were, champing at the bit to take him that early. It's probably about where he was going to go. Yeah. So at that point, you're just saying, hey, we'll snag this kid. We'll maybe give him a shot this year. If not, keep him around. He's on a rookie contract. We have his rights for a couple of years. If we get our guy next year because we're 2-15, then so be it. He's there too. We have a couple bites of the apple. If not, maybe we got to give him a shot next year. So kind of a goofy spot. We'll see. Let's talk about the rest of the off season quick, because there was other stuff that happened. Kyler Murray was on this team last year. As you mentioned, he played 5 games. He's in Minnesota. Maybe the biggest loss, I suppose, if you want to talk about.
Cardinals are paying him more this year than the Vikings are, right?
I mean, what was Calais Campbell, Jalen Thompson.
I had Calais Campbell rated as their best defensive player from last year. I had Jalen Thompson rated as their second best defensive player last year, and they're both gone.
Like so Jalen Thompson was a legitimate starter at safety. I didn't have him as great, but he was a legitimate safety that is now in Dallas. Calais Campbell is still serviceable up front. He played 17 games. Like he's actually a loss. Yes. Greg Dortch, he only had like 30 catches last year, but he played. Zay Jones, no longer on the team. And then some casualties up front, Delvin Tomlinson, Bilal Nichols, linebacker Akeem Davis Gaither, and additions besides.
Did you say Delvin Tomlinson?
I did say Delvin Tomlinson.
Yeah, I had him as the third best defensive player for your team last year. Top three guys I had graded for your team are gone.
A lot of it was just he played. He played like every game.
Yeah, he was available.
Free agent
528 snaps for him.
I don't think we've mentioned a single free agent addition. We've only talked about the coaching. So Isaac Seumalo, that's your signing. That's your guy with, hey, this guy's going to start. He's going to play, decent pass protector, steps in at left guard next to PJJ, has at least 2 spots on the line settled. Tyler Algier from Atlanta. Maybe we get to see. It's funny that you did that, and then you also drafted a running back as I did, because Tyler Algier showed some real flashes. And it's like, hey, this guy is kind of stuck in a buddy cop movie here with another really good running back, and I'd love to see him get like a bunch.
What if he had an
carries.
Expanded role, and then you immediately punk him? Yeah.
Matt Pryor from Philly, the offensive lineman, he'll be in the mix.
Depth. Yeah,
he'll be in the mix for right tackle, but most likely depth. Roy Lopez from Detroit, defensive lineman. He played another one where it's just like he played every game. I think he was actually here before.
Yeah, he's back.
He's back in Arizona, so he'll be your nose tackle most likely in this 3-4. Andrew Wingard, you lost a safety, you gained a safety. This one's not as good. Very good run defender, Andrew Wingard. So he'll probably be playing free safety at times as they move guys around back there. We'll see how that looks. And then Gardner Minshew the second is also on this team as an insurance. As we mentioned, the draft class started with Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. That is the highest running back taken since Saquon in 2018. Fun fact, Arizona didn't trade any of their picks. They had all 7 original picks, made 0 trades. Nobody, people fear Austin Fort. And then not much else. We mentioned back in the second round, they took Chase Basantis, Texas A&M, projected right guard. Maybe. I think it's him and Adams probably vying for that spot. I don't know who you have starting. I would say Adams probably has the head start in that spot. And then some depth behind there in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th and 7th. As I mentioned, they had all their stuff. Caleb Proctor, a compensatory pick, defensive lineman. Reggie Virgil, who you saw, if you watch some camp stuff, catch a nice touchdown from Beck the other day. A linebacker in the 6th, and another offensive lineman, Jaden Williams, in the 7th. Some depth there. And it's still an incomplete roster.
Let's talk about pick 1.03.
It's a tough pill to swallow if you go and get another running back. Because, here
who cares about that?
I'm going to stop here.
Okay.
Because I've seen a team do this. And Proctor's injured. If you do this like Detroit did, hey, we have 2 running backs. We can keep them both pretty fresh for the playoffs. Like, that's a fun thing to do, because then you have 2 really good running backs, and neither of them has 400 hits on their body come playoff time. But that's not really the path for this Arizona team this year. So be interesting to see what exactly we go there. And
honestly, the fact that you 2 seasons ago had Clayton Adams in your offensive game plan room, crafting up really outstanding run design and blocking scheme. And then he walks last year, and the running game overall craters to being wildly inefficient, is a sign of you lost an important piece of your design. Addressing that by then swinging with the 3rd overall pick on a running back is certifiably insane. Like, that is such bad process. I don't even really know where to start. It makes me think Monty Austin-Fort is a dunce. I cannot believe that they wasted that pick on a running back. And I am not a person that is kind of married to this idea that the running game doesn't matter as much, but the idea of he's the highest compensated running back in football, Andy. What the fuck?
$50 million contract. Not too shabby.
What the fuck? I don't know. I didn't see anything in college that was like, this guy is generational. He's a must-have. He's gonna, he's gonna immediately step in and do the Saquon Barkley 2K show. And I also don't understand that, like, how you could look at your roster and decide that that's the biggest hole you have, or was going to fill an immediate need for you this year. Like, none of it made sense. You're going to waste this kid's one of the best years that he has in the NFL because of the way that the running back aging curve works. You're probably going to waste his 2 best years with a non-competitive offense. So, like, why do this?
It was weird because I wonder, what happened there with trade offers and if anybody tried to move up. But at that point, if you're not taking Love, you're probably not taking like Tater Tyson. So you just drafted a wide receiver. Maybe you are. Are you going Arvell Reese there? Are you going Sonny Styles? Like
you have no pass rush.
You need help at all 3 levels defensively. So, like, taking Reese, maybe a reach at that spot, but I mean,
the Jets were 50-50 Bailey Reese. Why is it a reach?
I know, but that's the market. That's just that's just the gambling market. At this point,
everybody that did big boards, it was a big question.
I know, but those guys aren't.
But like Reese was only a question of 2-3 because of like the potential timeline it was going to take him to get up to speed and be a contributing factor. If you're the Cardinals,
which makes it fit to the Cardinals,
perfect fit.
Yes,
what a fit!
All right. So yes, if I'm the Austin Forts of the world, I'm probably looking at Styles or Reese rather. But guess what? We're not here to.
Caleb Downs was a better fill with more immediate need and potentially better timeline for your rebuild. I just don't understand the move, and I hate that I am now kind of falling into the it's good. Yeah, you know who else was a can't miss? Ashton Genty. You know what was a terrible decision? The Raiders taking him 6th.
Putting him on a bad team.
Put him on a bad team, waste his prime while you're compensating him at the highest level of anyone at the position. Wasting his prime makes no sense. And I'm trying not to fall into the trap of backing up my prior by watching clips of him sucking and being like, ha, those idiots picked a running back who is not even going to have a successful rookie campaign. But I'm going to be stunned if he's like meaningful impact in year 1 or 2 for this team based on, the other issues with this offense. They're going to face a lot of stacked boxes. They don't really have a blocking tight end worth a damn. I don't know, man. This was a pick of luxury for a team that has needs everywhere, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, as they're still trying to figure it out. I'm reading camp notes to kind of keep up on injuries, and some of my camp notes that I brought up today for Cardinals were just like, hey, they're kind of experimenting with the secondary. Like Elijah Jones is playing a little more or something.
You know what? Maybe they should have looked a little bit closer at their college scouting program. Cardinals maybe weren't entirely like
what was that guy doing?
super on the ball in terms of scouting college players, I guess.
Instead of watching the scouting reports, he just had his FanDuel up.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's get into ratings. For the Cardinals, because this was a tough one for me.
There's no way you can make a Jacoby Brissett number with Mike LaFleur as the presumable offensive mind here, less than less than like a 16th percentile. So I went with the 1.9 to start the season. I know that's probably low. I know the data from Jacoby Brissett last year looks better on paper than it is because it's so fueled with garbage time production that I'm not going to go any higher than a 2.
Yeah. What do you think? That's what happened to me. I just ran it raw. Like, hey, let's take his numbers and just put him in as the starter for 17. Let's say I have LaFleur as like a 50th percentile play caller. It's like, this is like a 4.8. Yeah, I don't know.
Is it really though?
Yeah. I'm like, is it really though? So I did dig in a little, and yeah, if you start to use the, your running backs don't matter, or even the play-by-play data, and start looking at win percentage, garbage time stuff, it makes it a little dash of context brings it way down. I still went with a 3 just because of what he's capable of and what we've seen, the ceiling of Brissett, presumably in a better situation offensively, but that's about as high as I'm willing to go until, we see, hey, they're using their weapons better. Brissett's more acclimated to the system. This is a good offense. It's still a 30th percentile offense for me right now.
Yeah. 30th seems generous. I think it's between the 20th and the 16th somewhere. If you use the full sample size unclean, it's 590-ish dropbacks, something like that. And, it's not all, he's not putting up all that different efficiency numbers than, guys in that 33rd percentile range. The minute you drop it, like, let's cut what's the fair cutoff for you for garbage time? 10 or 20, 15, something like that?
It depends what point in the game. I do a sliding scale based on.
Okay, that's fair. Well, yeah. If you cut it out, only the meaningful portion of the game, he's kind of in he's in like the Tua Mason Rudolph kind of range. So I don't know. I don't think he's gonna wow us and get a 30th. So did you say you used a 3 for 30?
Yeah,
33rd?
I'm using a 3 for week.
I'm going 1.9 for him for now. And again, like, shit, man, I'm trying to regress to get closer to the market for these guys. Like, if I'm looking for reasons to come in with a low number there to turn.
I think I'm higher than you. I'm higher than you on a lot of stuff for them. I'm like
trying to effectively regress the market here. Skill position.
I wanted to do that, but at the same time, every time I try to do that, it's like I shouldn't just automatically blindly let the market lead me on every team. If I keep coming up with numbers higher than them, sometimes I just got to stick with it. I'm going to use it to a point, but even skill, I'm higher than you here.
Okay. I have a 4.3 for skill group. Part of it is I don't know that I'm all the way prepared to embrace the newfound Marvin Harrison Jr. experience. I think he's still very limited. I do like Michael Wilson as a wide receiver 2. Kendrick Bourne is a fine wide receiver 3. Trey McBride is an excellent tight end, and Love and Algier are a fine backfield. I didn't want to get it all the way to a 5 because I think there will be some force feeding of Marvin Harrison Jr., which might be minus EV. So that's why I'm coming in a little bit under 5. What about you?
5.3.
Jeez.
I don't usually give rookies much credence, but he was pretty amazing in college, and he's gonna get fed the ball. And like we said, if I took anything away from what we saw in New York before he got hurt, they were doing a really nice job with Breece Hall. I think we can at least have a good run game here, guys. So I think Love brings that up, but obviously So does, Trey McBride. Trey McBride he's top 5 tight end, no matter how you slice it, I think. It just based on fucker's going to get some volume. I don't know how much they're going to force feed Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, we saw what he can do at times. The best that we saw him was when he was wearing a different jersey in college, but still obviously a lot of potential there. So if he's good, as you mentioned, Michael Wilson's kind of an underrated nice piece across the field for my Z receiver, and then Kendrick Bourne in the slot. So
okay.
little above average, just based on Trey McBride's amazing, Love's amazing. Marvin Harrison has the ability to be amazing, and then it's not terrible behind him.
Okay. All right. O-line for me is a 3.5. I like Paris Johnson Jr. I like Isaac Seumalo. I don't like Hjalte Froholt. Hjalte Froholt. He's a minus. Isaiah Adams is a minus. Elijah Wilkinson is a big minus. I think he's one of the kind of bottom 10 guys who's going to start week 1 across offensive lines, period. So overall, if you coach these guys up, I could see him getting as high as a 4 or a 5 at some point for me rating wise this season. But going in here to start, I'm at about a 35th percentile. So
3.5. 4.7.
Okay. So you're basically,
I'm like a point higher.
Are the Cardinals offense, are they top 25 for you? Probably are.
To start the season, it is their higher of the two. I don't have that chart open. I'm not going to do it right now.
Okay.
I did want to talk real quick, just like Paris missed some games last year, and when we had to fill in anywhere last year in the interior, it was bad. Brown was bad. Jonah Williams was here. That was bad. Like I do like what we have on the left side. I think, as you mentioned, Adams and Froholt are probably negatives, but
how do you do the first name for Froholt?
Hjalte.
Okay.
Hjalte.
Hjalte. Okay.
Sam says Hjalta.
Okay. Hjalte.
I go Hjalte.
Hjalte Froholt. Okay.
Sounds Nordic, but
so your offensive percentile overall is what? 35th, 40th, something like that.
Power ratings. Gotta pull up my power ratings.
I'm at 29th percentile for the offense, which is 31st in the NFL for me. I would take them over the Browns.
I have them as 30s, somewhere in the 30s here.
Okay. Defense was easy. This is the worst defense in the NFL. Do you disagree?
It's not good. Let me see. I have nobody below them. No, I don't. My next,
this is
the
clearly
Dolphins.
The worst, I think.
The Dolphins are there, but they're not all that close. And the Raiders are sitting up there. Raiders at least have a player. Although there are some players on here. So my disagreement with you is on pass rush a little. Otherwise, I'm not very high on this team defensively.
Okay. I have questions about Budda Baker's quality of play last year. I thought his coverage was sort of always his kind of X factor, and that slipped to good, not great. Like I said, I thought Jalen Thompson outplayed him pretty clearly. Jalen Thompson is a very bad run defender. I thought his coverage was excellent. Budda Baker didn't really give you much in the pass rush either. His run defense was fine. The next best player besides Budda Baker that you retained, I guess, is Josh Sweat. He is unclear if he's going to be available for week 1. What's your read there? Have you heard his name once this whole cycle?
I mean, I haven't been. I guess I did watch part of a Cardinals game the other day, but yeah, it's a tough hang up front, and there's a bunch of question marks in the back end too, though. But if Sweat plays, I have this as a decent, still very much below average pass rush. You have Sweat and Collins as your outside linebackers.
Zaven Collins is your best pass rusher. And
I
mean, Walter Nolan is probably going to be your best pass rusher, but good luck to him staying healthy. I'll believe that when I see it.
But again, I'm grading it as if Walter Nolan's play. It's week 1, and all hope is
hope's eternal.
Walter Nolan is healthy right now, and then Lopez in the middle, Darius Robinson up front at the other edge, with Sweat and Collins coming off the edge, Cody Simon and Mac Wilson inside your linebacking core, and then I have Denzel Burke and Will Johnson as your outside corners, with probably, like we mentioned, Wingard helps with the run stop, Budda Baker maybe bounces back a little, and then Garrett Wilson stepping in along with like Elijah Jones and Kitten Crawford. So here's the thing: Kitten Crawford was getting starting snaps, and he's Baker's backup. So there might be some rotation around on the safeties, especially when they go with 3 safety looks. So we will see. My numbers real quick before we get to the schedule. Coverage 2.9. I think I'm lower than you there.
I'm at 3.5.
Yeah, a lot of the guys I'm struggling with, and the Jalen Thompson thing stinks for me as he moved on. I'm higher on pass rush, 3.9, but that does matter with the, Sweat opened. He opened camp on the pup. LaFleur thinks he's going to play week 1, so I put him in for week 1. If he doesn't play, this is not a 3.9.
I got a prediction for you that Josh Sweat's not a Cardinal to start the season.
That'll be interesting too.
Okay. What was your
run stop? I'm a 4. We're about the same there.
I'm at 3.8 for run stop. I'm a 2.3 for pass rush. I really do not like this pass rush, and I'm at 3.5 for coverage. I'm not sure what I'm seeing in the coverage that you are not seeing, because I didn't really rate many of these guys especially well. I guess if you made me say, well, okay, who's the surprise standout player for this entire unit? I think it's probably going to be Denzel Burke. He was a 5th-round pick last year. He graded out as a pretty strong cover corner for a guy that was that poorly regarded. He had about 653 snaps last year, so decent sample size. He might be a good cover player, but that's about all I got. My coaching number was 2. You're at a 3.2. I guess I'm not expecting the world here from LaFleur plus Hackett in terms of in-game management of all things that are important coaching.
We always speak the world of Shanahan and McVay, but at the same time, they've made some very conservative calls at some funny times over the years. So we'll see. I had to put him as league neutral plus because he's youngish and he's been with some smart places.
Special teams, you're at 3.3. I'm at 4.0. I'm going to change my number to 3.3 because that's the way this works, which brings your final percentile to 38.5. I am a 29.5 percentile team. You have them as minus 3.3. I have them as minus 4.3. Andy, the market rates the Cardinals a minus 7.2.
I know it.
Holy cow.
So
we are more positive on the Cardinals than we are on any other team in football. That is insane.
So I reran it and I said, I need to do this. I says to Andy, I need to do this with like 3 games of Brissett, 14 games of Beck, and I'll give Beck like a 0.5 to start, and I'll move him up to like a 2 at the end of the year. And it was still like, I'm at like a -5.
With the pieces on offense, you can't get to -7 for these guys. And if you don't believe me that the market has them as -7, they are currently available with relatively high limits as 10-point dogs on the road at the Chargers week 1. Andy, do the LA Chargers have a notable home field advantage in your opinion? Should it be more than 1.5, 1.6? Should it even be 1.5?
It should be like 0.5.
So the Cardinals being a -7 and the Chargers being a +1.5, does that sound right to you? Chargers +2-ish, and then 1 point of home field advantage in this game?
Well, not with our numbers. No, we're
No.
gonna bet them 3 straight weeks. We're gonna go 1-2. We're gonna be mad about it, and
That's what
such is
sharps do.
life. Yeah. Who's your defensive guy? We should almost write these down. This is
Denzel Burke.
Your Denzel Burke. I like
Denzel
him.
Burke.
I think I am gonna go with. I don't even know how to say the guy's first name right. Is it Catan, like the board game, or Kitten?
I don't know, man.
I'm just gonna say Crawford.
Kitten like a cat.
He second year guy. I think they're both second year guys, but he had a bunch of coverage snaps last year and didn't look bad. And then with another injury, the Williams, what's his name? The nickel, Garrett Williams.
Yeah.
He blew up an Achilles like late in the season. So it's just like, hey, the nickel job is kind of there for people.
Okay. Well, as we look at this schedule, they paid Brissett $15 million to be their week 1 starter. They're presumably going to play him as their starting quarterback until he gets hurt or is so ineffective that they just have to make this change to see what they've got in Beck. If that happens, it's probably week 12 hosting the when you have Commanders and Eagles on deck before a bye, get him a couple of starts, evaluate him on the bye, try to win some games in December.
I tend to stop guessing on this because of last year. And honestly, we've done it a few times now where it's like, oh man, what a bunch of idiots up there in New England. This is where they're going to finally stick the rookie in. And oops, it worked out. Like, I think teams have stopped worrying about giving their rookies a soft landing. Just like more of, hey, it's time to put somebody else in. We got to put
I think it's a pretty different paradigm, though, when you're replacing Brissett, who you didn't pay a lot, with the the 3rd overall pick in Drake May.
Yeah, no, it's different, but at the same time, I don't think they're at this point in the year they're like bookmarking anything. I think it's kind of a play it by ear. If we are really unhappy with the product on the field, he doesn't seem to give a shit, or he's not playing well. It might just be like pull the ripcord, and you might just, if they say, hey, the kid's not ready, you might end up with like, hey, here's. Yeah, week 6 at the Rams, lose by 40. Guess what? We're getting Gardner Minshew for 2 weeks before Beck starts. It could be kind of a play it by ear situation.
There's a couple of games that I find interesting on this schedule. None of the sequencing I think is going to matter. This is going to be a bad team. They're going to lose a lot of games. There's 4 implied wins on here when you add up all of the win percentages, which are a lot of times 20%, as they are double-digit dogs often. There's probably going to be a pretty healthy survivor strategy of who are the Cardinals playing. Let's pick that team for survivor this week. You're going to have to get a little creative when the division rolls around for the second time and find other options. But one survivor strategy, if you're playing the circuit contest this year and you want to get second place to us, is you could probably just pick against the Cardinals a lot. I would say that the good offenses on this schedule, notably like that Detroit week 5 game, that to me feels like the trapdoor could really open for this defense and they could give up 40 points. The Rams probably are scoring 40 points. I don't know that I feel good enough about a Mike McDaniel offense week 1 with the Chargers that I'm worried about taking the 10 points there. That to me feels like, Chargers win 27-20 kind of a game. Seattle offense probably not quite good enough to just absolutely lambaste these fools, but the defense is going to make the life hard for the Cardinals in that one. A team with like really elite weapons is going to truly punish these guys, and Detroit week 5, Rams week 6 back-to-back looks like those opportunities. Any other thoughts?
No, this was the other part of the equation where, hey, we have a nice power rating here, but power rating is versus a neutral team, and there's a lot of playoff teams. There's a bunch of teams that played deep into the playoffs or into the Super Bowl or expected to go to the Super Bowl this year, and you don't get any respite until maybe the Washington game in week 12.
The Cardinals are really going to make life hard on you if you live in Arizona and you want to watch the good game in the 4 p.m. window, because you're going to get regionaled into the Cardinals game in a lot of 4 p.m. kickoffs.
You wanted to watch KC Denver? Sorry, you're getting Arizona versus the Jets.
Yes, the Jets.
All right, let's any betting angles on this team?
I mean, what the hell? No way to square how cold the market is on them, but no real interest to get involved because winning might just not be the plan. And winning might not be possible because the defense is so bad.
Plus 240 to have the worst record.
Most points allowed. I like that better.
Most points allowed wouldn't be bad.
I like most points allowed better. They're playing a lot of good offenses, and their defense is going to stink out loud, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess Jeremiah Love is one of your favorites to be. Oh, Roy.
I would take him on at that price and not even think twice about it.
I feel like I need to figure out how many catches he's going to have because it's going to be awful easy to just be like, well, I don't care. We're up by so much. We can stack the box even with the lead. We don't have to play prevent. Stop their weapon. Although, we mentioned they have good receivers as well. I don't know. Not much I want to do here.
Okay.
They already got a loss on the season. Couldn't keep Haynes King from getting him at the buzzer.
That hurt me actually. I have
very
Cardinals.
very similar to Paul Crew when he beat the guards in the original. I think that was a running touchdown right at the end at the whistle.
Yeah. I was hoping his knee got down, but it didn't.
It did not. He was very much in. All right, we'll catch you on the flip side. If you're watching these live, we're about to go to a different room, do a different show, same channel, and we're going to talk about the electrical substation.